send anyone, please do not leave your luggage unattended. Thank you.
That bumper went faster than I thought. I had to run. Welcome everybody. We are finishing up our series, Baggage, today. If you've not been here, you can always go back and check out. It's kind of been a longer series, been 7 weeks, this whole series. I was thinking this week, I don't know if you ever heard of the saying, your Achilles heel. You ever heard that saying? Like the saying of something is your Achilles heel. What that means is, when we're talking about Achilles heel, we're talking about a vulnerability or a weakness in spite of overall strengths. The term Achilles heel came from Greek mythology. In Greek mythology, Achilles was unbeatable. His body was fully unbeatable. You couldn't hurt him except for one spot in his heel. And the way the myth goes is that his mom, Achilles' mom, took Achilles and in some kind of body of water, it gave him supernatural abilities, but she held him by his heel and put him in the water. Which, first off, I always think of that's such a weird way to hold a baby, in the heel, why don't you just grab the leg? Anyways, and then why wouldn't she just do it really quick, turn it around? Anyways, so you cannot beat him except there's one spot, according to Greek mythology, that you could. It was his heel. And then in the Trojan War, a warrior named Paris launches one arrow. It hits him in his heel. It destroys Achilles, and he is done. It was his one vulnerable weak spot. And now we use that as a saying of a very small thing, but it's a weak spot that can really destroy you and can take you down. It can destroy your character. It's a vulnerability or a weakness. That's how it's used today. Things like, if I don't get a handle on blank, it could take down my marriage. Or if I'm not careful with blank, it's going to hurt my career. Or if I don't keep an eye on blank, it could distance my relationship with God. It's a vulnerability. It's a weakness. It's one small thing that if we're not careful, can lead us down a path that will eventually destroy us or our character. And I believe that all of us have the same Achilles heel. Now, it looks differently for each one of us, but I believe that all of us have the same Achilles heel. It's all rooted in the same thing. It shows up in different ways, but it's all rooted in the same thing. It's what makes you jealous of other people's success to a point where you cannot celebrate when other people do well. It's what keeps you from apologizing when you know you should apologize and you know you're wrong, but I'm not going to apologize about that. It's what caused you to write someone out of your life because you can't let go of a grudge. It's what makes you exaggerate your accomplishments and diminish your mistakes. It's what caused you to act one way around one group of people and a completely different way around a different group of people. And this Achilles heel is what we're going to close with today. It's all about pride. Pride is everyone's Achilles heel. Throughout this series, if you haven't been here, we've been saying that we all of us in life have baggage. And baggage weighs you down, it slows you down, and it makes the journey harder. Now, for a lot of us, we take the baggage of life and we carry it around with us, and it weighs us down, slows us down, and makes the journey harder. But the invitation of Jesus is to release it to him. He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." That we can take the baggage of life that we don't have to carry around in life and offer it up to God. And we've been talking about different types of baggage each week. If you've been here, we've been talking about different types of baggage. Today, we're going to close talking about pride. You may say, what is pride? Here's a definition that I like to use for pride. You can write this down on your impact card. It says, pride is having an excessive preoccupation with yourself. When I think of pride, I normally think of the arrogant person or the cocky person, the person that's self-absorbed. That's normally my thought when I think of it. But that isn't what pride is. Because pride is tricky because it shows itself in so many different ways, but it's all about you. It's a preoccupation with yourself. Pride is why marriages can fail. Yeah, there's infidelity. Yeah, there might be abuse. There might be something else. But the root of it is pride. Pride is why friendships end in destructive ways. Pride is why we think too highly of ourselves. Pride is also why we think too lowly of ourselves, because it's an excessive preoccupation with yourself. Pride is what keeps God on the sideline of your life rather than the Lord of your life. Pride is having an excessive preoccupation with yourself. And for some of us, pride does come out as arrogance or cockiness or trying to be the center of attention or always making sure the attention is on you, making sure you get what you feel like you deserve, always thinking about how to best serve yourself. But for others of us, that's not how pride comes out. Pride also comes out and it looks like humility, but it actually isn't. All you do is put yourself down. All you do is make it about yourself less. You're still overly concerned about yourself, but you're actually diminishing yourself in order to do that. That is also pride. Every struggle, every problem, every sin, the source of all of it is pride. I like how C.S. Lewis says, there's a quote, it will be on the screen as well. C.S. Lewis says in Mere Christianity, he says, "There is one vice of which no man in this world is free, a vice which everyone in the world loathes when they see it in someone else, and of which hardly any people ever imagine that they are guilty of themselves." That is pride. And pride shows up in so many different ways. I'm going to give you a bunch of ways it shows up. And as I'm giving you these ways, I want you to think, and you can write this down or even circle the ones that are you. Be like, oh, that's how it shows up in my life. That's how it shows up in my life. My guess is when I read these, you're going to have a couple of these. They're like, that's how pride shows up. Here's a couple ways that pride shows up. First is being defensive. When someone challenges us or calls us out on something, we immediately get defensive. Like a personal example, if my wife were to say, hey, is there any way you can help me clean up around the house? And this would never happen in our house, but let's just imagine it does. I would go, Erica, all I do is clean. We have 3 kids. I have to do laundry and dishes every day, or it's like we've never done it ever. If you have a lot of kids, you know. Like, I have to run my dishwasher every day. I just want a break. I don't want to clean up right now. I always clean up, Erica. I clean up all the time. Right now I need a break. And she might go, calm down. I just asked if you can clean up a little bit. It's like you can help me. That's being defensive. That is pride. It's how pride is showing itself. Here's another one, being stubborn. You refuse to apologize. You won't ever admit that you're wrong. And you won't ever take the blame for your part of the problem because there's not many conflicts that is 100% one person's fault. Or when you do take the blame, you refuse to deal with the consequences of the thing you did wrong. That's being stubborn. That's a form of pride. Here's another one, being self-conscious. Now, I know this is not a you, but let's just imagine a group picture is taken that you are in, and you grab the phone. What do you look for? Are you checking to make sure everyone else looks good? No. You're only looking at yourself, and you might need to retake that picture a couple times because I don't look skinny enough, or I didn't smile very good, so we're going to take that. That's being self-conscious, right? You're overly conscious of how other people perceive you, how you look online, your image, what other people think about you. That's pride. It's being self-conscious. Here's another one. Discontent. Not being satisfied with what you have. I have friends that have a Tesla. I would love to have a Tesla. I don't have a Tesla. I have friends who have bigger houses than I do. I like my house. Yeah, I wish it was bigger. I have friends who have bigger bank accounts than I do. I would love to have more money in my bank account. That's being discontent. We are not fully satisfied with our life and what we have. I mean, it's fine, but it could be better, and I'm not satisfied until it's better. This is a version of pride, being discontent. How about this, being critical? Pride makes us think that our opinion is the only opinion that matters because it's not really an opinion. It's just what is true. This is facts. My opinion happens to also be the truth. We just got through a political season, and it still feels like we're pretty divisive now. And I hear people go, how could anyone be a Republican? Or how could anyone be a Democrat? Or how can anyone be a Libertarian? What is that? That is being too critical. That's going, you know what? I know what's right. This is the right opinion. How could anyone have a different opinion than me? And this applies a lot at church. Here's some of the things that have happened at church. I have had people that have given me feedback on my sermon who don't read the Bible consistently, never went to school for it, never preached a day in their life, never actually even talked in front of a group of people, but they wanted to let me know how I can improve in my preaching. Like, yeah, I can always improve. Yeah, sure. We've had people who don't have kids, have never served in the kids area, but told us all the things we need to do different in our kids area. It's like, well, maybe you should jump in and help, and you can do that. Oh, and this is the funniest one to me. We have people every once in a while that will come to us and who cannot play an instrument, can't sing at all, but they know how to improve the worship. I'm like, well, putting you up there probably wouldn't do it. That's for sure, right? That's pride. That's being too critical. And that's what happens, right? That's a version of pride. Here's another one, argumentative. Proverbs 13:10 says, pride only breeds quarrels. Someone posts something that you don't like, you can't just keep scrolling. You've got to argue it. You've got to make sure it's known. You're going to waste your time arguing with this screen that's not going to convince anyone. I have never in my life heard of somebody who was reading something, saw a comment, and said, oh, I'm going to change my opinion now. Never heard it in my life. It's never happened. Or somebody says something that you don't like at your family gathering, and you know you don't have to reply to it. But you're like, if you're like me, you're like, I feel a little spicy today. I'm going to reply to this and see what happens. Drop a little grenade in there. And all of a sudden it becomes a huge argument over politics or religion or something else, right? That's being argumentative. That's a version of pride. And then the last one I have, self-absorbed. Philippians 2:4 says that each of you should look not only to your own interest, but also to the interest of others. And pride hears that verse and then goes, yeah, but then how will I get my interest promoted? Like, how will I make sure that's done? Pride is constantly focused on ourselves. How does this affect me? If this changes, how will it cost me? If he doesn't, how will it affect me? If she doesn't, how will it affect me? And you know how self-absorbed we can be? Right now, for some of us, we're hearing a sermon on pride, and we're thinking, I hope he's listening to this. I'm going to send this to a friend. I hope she's listening to this. Like, I'm preaching a sermon on pride, and for some of us, we're so self-absorbed, we can't even look at ourselves and go, oh, that could be me that he's talking to. We're thinking of our friends that it should be, right? Pride is having an excessive preoccupation with yourself. I think a great example of in the Bible of pride revealing itself in many different ways is from the story of Saul. And we're going to look at Saul. We're going to look at 1 Samuel chapter 15. In 1 Samuel, the people of Israel, which were God's chosen people, they are transitioning from a time of judges. That's how they started first. They did not have a king because God was their king. Every nation had kings, but not Israel. They had judges, and God was their king. But the nation of Israel wanted to be like other nations. So they said, we want a king. And God's like, you don't want a king. It's like, yes, we do want a king. So they're okay, you want a king? We're going to give you a king. And so God uses Samuel and the prophet Samuel to appoint Saul. Saul becomes the first king of Israel. But when Samuel appoints Saul, Saul thinks that there must have been a mistake. Samuel tells Saul that God has appointed him as king of Israel, and Saul responds to Samuel saying, I am from the smallest tribe of Israel. This has to be a mistake. This is what Saul says. Now, this sounds like humility, doesn't it? It sounds like, oh, he's being humble. But we'll learn later this is actually not humility. This is actually false humility. See, humility would say, wow, I can't believe God would choose me, but if he did, I will leverage it to help others know him. False humility says, well, God had made a mistake by picking me. It's still pride. Saul had so much insecurity and false humility that during his inauguration, he's becoming king, he becomes his inauguration, they look for him, they can't find him. He's literally hiding in the luggage. That's where he is. Because he's so terrified, he's hiding in the luggage. That's how he starts his reign as king. He's so embarrassed, and he actually has pride in a bad way, where he is looking and putting himself in the luggage. He's looking at himself negatively. He had so much insecurity and false humility. Skip ahead, Saul is now king. God gives Saul specific instructions as the king. And here are the instructions. It says, hey, when you attack the nation, when you attack the Amalekites, don't leave anything alive. Kill everything, including all the livestock. It's an important part to remember. But Saul is afraid of what others might think of him. He's a little too afraid of that, so he disobeys God. Here's what it says in 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 11. He disobeys God. He doesn't do exactly what he's told, and this is what God says next. It says this, 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 11. I regret that I have made Saul king, because he has turned away from me and has not carried out my instructions. Samuel, which is God's prophet, is heartbroken about this, so he goes and he talks to Saul. And when he gets there, Saul, the same guy who was hiding in luggage at one point during his inauguration, is in the process of building himself a statue of himself for the nation to see. That's what he's doing. So that's the jump that we've gotten with Saul. First, he was so embarrassed and hiding because it has to be a mistake. Now he's building a statue so they can worship him. That's what's happening with Saul. Samuel goes to Saul, that is showing his pride, and here's what Samuel says in verse 13. When Samuel reached him, Saul said, the Lord bless you. I have carried out the Lord's instructions. What is Saul doing here? Lying. The instructions were, don't leave anything alive. But yet he brought all this livestock back. It's like, so he's lying. Samuel knows that, verse 14. But Samuel said, what then is the bleating of sheep in my ears? What is the lowing of cattle that I hear? It's like, Saul, I can literally hear sheep that you kept. Like, I can see it, like what you're doing. Look how Saul answered. Saul answered, the soldiers brought them from the Amalekites. They spared the best of the sheep and cattle to sacrifice to the Lord your God, but we totally destroyed the rest. Do you see the deflection in Saul here? Do you see the excuses? Do you see the half-truths? You see him being defensive? You see the manipulation? Hey, we only brought it because we wanted to serve God better. We wanted to sacrifice him to God. Even though we're disobeying God in order to do this, but that's what we wanted to do. All of this is pride. Eventually, Saul understands. Skipping down to verse 24. Then Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned. I violated the Lord's commands and your instructions. I was afraid of the men, so I gave in to them. What has Saul done? He cared more about the opinions of other people than he did about God, and because of it, it led him to disobey God. And when I read that, I go, me too. I get it, Saul. Like, I do that all the time. Like, at times, I care more about the acceptance of people than I do about God. At times, I care more about how I look than what God is calling me to do. I get it, Saul. Me too. So Saul is here, and he's admitting, this is good. This is a good thing. This is him confessing and admitting. But he isn't fully a changed man. Look what it says in verse 30. Saul is talking. He says, I have sinned, but please honor me before the elders of my people and before Israel. Come back with me so that I may worship the Lord your God. He's still concerned with what other people think about him. He's still thinking about what other people, hey, just come back so you can honor me in front of these people. And this, if you know the story of Saul, I'm not going to go through the whole story, but if you know the story of Saul, this pride and his concern about other people and his worry of losing his reign actually leads him to a point where he dies because of it. He becomes a bad king of Israel because of his pride. Pride is having an excessive preoccupation with yourself. And if you don't do something about your pride, which all of us have, it will lead us down a path that we do not want to go down. So what do we do about pride? What's the answer here? How do we solve the pride problem? What's the solution? Here's a solution for pride. The solution for pride is humility. That's the solution. That is how we deal with our pride problem. Just like a lot of us think that pride is being an arrogant person who can't stop bragging about themselves, they're always the center of attention. Sometimes we think of humility as like self-deprecating or someone who just constantly tears themselves down or something like that. That's not humility. Humility is not self-deprecation. It isn't putting yourself down. In fact, that's another version of pride. Humility is being confident who God made you to be and living out the mission that he has given you with the talents you have in order to benefit someone else and not you. I love how another C.S. Lewis quote, I love how he says, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but it is thinking of yourself less. It's not thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less. You want the answer to pride? You want to solve the pride problem that we all face? The answer is humility. The disciples, when they were doing ministry with Jesus, at one point they're walking around, they've been doing ministry, they've heard the teachings, and they asked Jesus a question in Matthew 18, verse 1. Here's what the disciples asked Jesus. Who then is the greatest of heaven? Who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Now, I don't really know like the heart behind this, but I can, through context clues and through rest of the Gospels, we can pretty much understand. They're probably thinking, who's the greatest? The ones who like left all their stuff behind, the one who's been following you, the one who's doing life with you, is that the greatest? Because at one point, two of the disciples asked Jesus, hey, can we sit on your right and left when we get to heaven? Because we're doing a great thing here. Look at us. We left our nets, we left our jobs, we left our families to follow you. Jesus, just wondering, who's the greatest? Is it the people that surrendered everything? Look how Jesus responds. He called a little child to him and placed that child among them. And he said, truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. That's what he's saying. You want to be great? You need to have faith like a child. You need to be humble like a child. When I first read that, I thought, what in the world does that mean? Because here's the two problems I have when it comes to childlike faith that Jesus is describing. One, when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was grow up. I thought until I grew up, it doesn't really count yet. I just wanted to grow up and eventually get married and have kids, and that's all I thought about, number one. And then number two, are kids really humble? If I went upstairs and asked the kids team to describe your kids, I promise you they're not going to say they're humble, okay? No one's going to say that about I don't know all your kids. I know my kids. Listen, my kids have never, when I've come home, who I love, I have 3 kids, I adore them. I would never use the word humble to describe them. I've never once come home and they were like, oh, Dad, it looks like you had a really hard day. You know what? You just rest. Let me get you a seltzer water. We're going to put ourselves to bed. We'll take our own showers, and you just relax. They've never done that once. So Jesus, what do you mean by humble as a child? What does that mean? What is childlike faith? And here's what childlike faith is. Childlike faith is completely dependent on someone else. That's what childlike faith is. My kids never have to worry about the clothes they're going to wear. They never have to worry about what they will eat that day. They never have to worry about their safety. everything they have is a result of the love, hard work, and resilience of somebody else. Childlike faith is completely dependent on someone else. Here's what Jesus is saying when he says you have to have childlike faith. This is the humility. Instead of having pride, this is the humility you need to have. It says you don't need to earn my love because you already have it. You wonder how to have access to God? You have it right now. Through me and through the sacrifice that I made for you. You don't need to live your life grasping for the respect of others. You don't need to live your life trying to exalt yourself. Trust that I will do it for you. Just be humble like a child and depend on me. Rest in my truth. See, pride is really a lack of faith. It's a lack of trust that God will actually do what he says he will do. Lift us up when we humble ourselves. We are restless in our trust, so we reach for purpose ourselves. We don't want to be dependent on somebody else. We don't want to be dependent on him. We want to have control, so we cling to whatever sense of control that we can try to have, but we're left not feeling satisfied because we never can have control. And because of that struggle with faith, we start to believe, if we're not careful, we start to believe empty lies that the pride gives us. So I'm going to give you 3 things really quickly, and then we'll close. 3 things on the empty promises that pride gives each one of us. Here are the empty promises of pride. Number 1, pride promises bigger, but leaves you feeling smaller. Let me ask you a serious question. Would you rather be humble, truly humble, but no one thinks of you as humble? Or everyone thinks you're humble, but you're not? The temptation's tough, isn't it? Because, yeah, I know this is the right answer, but if no one thinks I'm humble, then what's the point almost, right? Like this feels really tempting, doesn't it? I know what I want the answer to be, but I also know who I am. And here's something that I do every once in a while. On Mondays are normally my day off, either Mondays or Fridays, and I'll do a lot of laundry on Mondays because it's a chore that I can do, and I can sit there and watch TV while I do it, right? And I'll do that, and sometimes I'm done in plenty of time, and I could then take all the clothes and put it away. But who wants to do that? Like, that's the worst part of doing laundry. And then what if I put all the clothes away, Erica's not going to know I did laundry that day. So sometimes, I've gotten better, but sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to leave it until she gets here. And they'll be like, okay, you see I did this, right? So I can get credit. Because what's the point of doing a chore if I don't get credit for it from my wife, right? That's pride, right? Pride promises bigger, but leaves you feeling smaller. Pride says you need to exalt yourself. You need to lift yourself up. You need to make sure everyone notices you. You need to make sure that you are getting what you deserve. But really, it leaves you feeling smaller. So when we see people that try to make themselves bigger out of pride, what do we naturally do around them? See people that try to make themselves bigger by being arrogant or by being too much or the center of attention. What do we naturally do? Naturally, we kind of hope they get knocked down a couple pegs, right? Just naturally we do that. And then the other way is true. When you perceive somebody as genuinely humble, when you see someone like they seem genuinely humble, what do? You want to lift them up. It's natural. Why do we do that? Why do we want people who we perceive as prideful to fail and fall? And why do we want people who we perceive as humble to be lifted up? I believe because it's a deep down in us, it's a God-stamped part of us that knows that we are called to be humble. We are called for humility. Peter knew this, so he quotes this in the book of the book of Proverbs in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5. It says, all of you clothe yourselves with humility towards one another because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. If pride is an invitation for God to oppose you, then humility is an invitation for God to bless you. Genuine humility. Humility that is confident in who God made us to be so that we can benefit other people. Yet because of our sinful nature, we wrestle with humility because we can't help but believe the empty promises that pride says. We think, well, if I don't elevate myself, who will? But here is the promise that humility gives us. If I don't elevate myself, God will. That is why humility takes faith. If it is faith that God will elevate you when you humble yourself. That's the empty promise number 1. Number 2, pride promises influence, but can't keep influence. Listen, if you're gifted enough and talented enough and work hard enough, you can get influence. Like at work, you can get influence. At your house, in different communities, you can get influence. But if you still work with pride and you still live with pride, you can't keep influence. So what do we practically do in order to make sure we still walk humbly so that we can keep influence? Well, here's a practical thing. Instead of trying to always be right, listen to other people's perspective, even if you disagree. I would say, especially if you disagree with them. Listen to their perspective. You might have to agree. You don't have to agree, but understand why they believe it. Because everyone, whatever people believe, they all think it's true. We all have a reason for it. So understand. Ask them questions. Get really good at asking other people questions. Instead of striving for affirmation, you encourage someone else. Harry Truman has a famous quote that says, "You can accomplish anything in life provided you don't mind who gets credit for it." Imagine if you applied that thought process to your marriage, to your workplace, to your friendships, to your parenting. A long time ago, I heard a sermon from Andy Stanley, and he gave this analogy. Andy Stanley was one of my favorite pastors, and he said, at some point, every single one of us are going to walk into a room, and we're going to realize we're the most influential person in that room. We're the most important person in that room. It might be at your job one day. It might be at your house. It might be in a group of friends. You're going to walk into that room and be like, oh, I have the most influence out of everybody here. One day it's going to happen to everybody if it hasn't already happened to you. And here's a question that he said that really stuck out to me. It says, what you do with that influence matters more than anything. When you walk in and you realize, oh, I'm the most influential person here, what you do with that influence matters more than anything. If you take that influence and try to get all the glory for yourself, try to make it all about you, that pride will kill you. But if instead you say, I have all this influence, so I'm going to use this influence to lift other people up, you will walk in humility and you will be imitating Christ. Don't believe the lie that pride will get you influence. It won't. Humility is the only thing that will keep influence in your life. And then the last empty promise, number 3. Pride promises independence, but you need dependence. Pride promises that you will be fully in control, that you will be self-sufficient, that you won't have to rely on anyone else because you can do it all yourself. We're not called to be independent. We are not called to have complete control. We are called to be dependent on our Savior. We are called to be dependent on Him, to sit humbly at His feet in full dependence of Him. Psalms 10:4 says, in his pride the wicked man does not seek Him. In all his thoughts there is no room for God. So where are you tempted to take control? Where are you tempted to make much of yourself? For some of us, we are simply crowding God out of our lives because of all of our pride. We're crowding God out of our marriages, of our jobs, of our friendships, because we believe that the lie that we have to do it all ourselves. We believe that lie until it gets hard. When life gets hard, then we realize something that we really knew was all along, but then we really realize it. We go, oh, I'm not actually in control. And that's a good thing. It's an okay thing. We are called to be fully dependent on God the way a child is fully dependent on someone else. Pride is having an excessive preoccupation with yourself. Humility is being completely dependent on God. And the solution to pride is humility. So through this series, we kept using the analogy of baggage. Week 1, we had Buff Eric try to carry all the bags. If you don't know which one Buff Eric is, you'll see him. You'll know when you see him. He's here. And we had him try to carry all these bags. And each week, for those of you that weren't here, we talk about different strongholds. We talk about different baggage that we try to carry. We talked about strongholds, guilt and shame, past hurts, possessions, and insecurity. And for a lot of us, we live life with these bags. Strongholds, the lies that we believe about ourselves that keeps sin in, right, and keeps God out. Guilt and shame over what we've done in our past or is kind of what's happened in our life. We just feel really bad about it. We know we did something wrong. We feel like we are something wrong. Possessions, the need to have more things because it makes us feel better about ourselves, right? Past hurts, maybe from your parents or from your family or from your last church, or past hurts that you never really dealt with or never handled. And then last week we talked about insecurities. It's things that we look at that about ourselves that we don't like, even though God made us that way. And this is what a lot of us do. And we tend to think pride is like another bag that we can pick up and carry. Here's the thing. Pride is not another bag that we carry. The fact that we try to carry any is pride. This is what pride looks like. I can do it. I can handle it. I can carry it. You know what? It's part of me now. It's not that heavy. I can live life carrying all this stuff around. This is what pride looks like. It's not another bag we pick up. The fact that we carry any bags is pride. So what are we called to do? How are we called to respond? we're supposed to have childlike faith. So it's to be dependent on God. When you carry things like this, you can't do anything with your hands, can you? Like if I were to fall down, I can't stop myself from falling, right? Because I have stuff in my hands. I can't lift my hands up. I can't help somebody else up. I can't do anything because I'm too busy carrying all the baggage of life. This is what pride looks like. The fact that we try to carry any of it. And in humility, we are called one bag at a time to say, God, I trust you. God, if you could take all these past hurts, giving it to you. God, if you could take this guilt and shame that has been wrecking my life, you can have it. God, my need for possessions that don't actually ever make me feel better and it makes me want more, you can have that. And all the strongholds and lies I believe about myself, you can have it. This is what humility is, dropping one thing at a time. And when you have your hands free, what can you do with your hands? Whatever you want. And the posture that I love the most is the posture of this, lifting your hands. It shows two things. This is a sign of surrender, right? I give up, I surrender. That's us saying, I can't carry this anymore, God. You carry it. If you promise me that rest that I need, come to me all who are weary and burdened. I'm weary and burdened. I'm giving it to you. We can rest. And then also, if you have a child, you have a younger child, and they want to get picked up and they need you, what do? They lift up. You cannot do this if you're carrying this. You cannot lift your hands if you have too much baggage. And when you have baggage, it's pride. There's not a piece of baggage that's pride. It's all pride. The fact that we think we can do it. And the invitation of Jesus is to say, God, I'm surrendering it all to you because I'm dependent on you. I surrender. And the way we surrender, the way we walk in humility is that we confess the bags that we are carrying and then we repent from them. What does repentance mean? It's not saying I'm sorry. It's saying, God, this is the bag I was carrying, so I'm going to drop it. I'm going to go a different direction now. I'm not going to keep living that way. I'm not going to keep doing that. I'm not going to keep going down the path that forced me to pick this bag up. And when you are tempted, which you will be, to pick that bag up, remember what that is. Pride. That's pride saying, I got to carry it. I got to lift it. I have to, because if I don't carry it, who's going to carry it? That's all pride. So as the worship team comes up, we get ready to close. We're going to play one closing song. And as we're playing this song, after I'm going to pray, I'm going to invite you to stand. I want you to ask God during the song to reveal to you the way pride is showing up in your life right now. The way that you are trying to carry a piece of luggage, a piece of baggage. And after God reveals that to you, during this song, I want you with your hands at some point to lift them. That's saying, God, I surrender. God, I want you with me. I want you to carry me. I want you to take these burdens. I'm done trying to carry this. God, I repent. I confess. I'm turning from this direction to another direction. God, I'm surrendering to you. And this is the sign. I think at times that we don't do enough things physically. Doing this changes the way you worship. It changes the way you follow God. It changes your mindset. Just going, God, I know this is awkward for me to do this. I know I have trouble doing this, but I surrender. I want to have childlike faith that walks in humility and fully dependent on you. So I'm going to pray. I'm going to invite you to stand. I want you to ask God right now, while I'm praying during the song, to reveal to you whatever that is. Whatever that is, that pride showing up. And then when you're ready, lift it up. Lift up your hands and a sign to God saying, I'm surrendering it. I'm giving it to you. Let's pray. So God, thank you that you are the God who gives us hope and grace, who loves us no matter what our past looks like, who has a plan for each one of us. God, thank you that you are the God who calls us to have childlike faith, to be fully dependent on you. God, I pray that you help each one of us to look into our own lives, look into the ways that we try to carry this baggage, look at all the ways that pride shows up in our lives. God, I pray that you help us right now to give it up to you, to surrender it to you. Say, God, I'm not carrying it anymore, but I want to live in the freedom that you have offered me. God, thank you that you are the God who gives us that freedom, who walks alongside of each one of us, who helps us with our next step. God, I pray that right now you help us to release whatever it looks like in our life, the baggage that we try to carry around, the pride that we have, to walk in humility with you. the God who demonstrated what humility looks like by sending your son to die for us. God, right now, pray that you reveal in each one of us the pride that we need to give up so that we can walk in humility. In your son's name.